a look at how I start to analyze some global open-ended investment companies. What I've done here is pull together some data from both the Hargreaves Lansdown website and the Fidelity website on what I think are some of the most popular and best performing global open-ended investment companies. So I've looked at fees, percentage of the fund that's in the top 10, fund size to see whether it's kind of like a flagship fund of the provider, because the larger funds are the ones that the provider will put the most emphasis on. And there's always a danger with open-ended investment companies that because although you invest in it, you're not a shareholder, the actual company behind it can just do whatever you like. They can merge the fund with something else. They can just redeem it if they want. So the larger the fund, generally the better. I mean, possibly Fundsmith though is a bit too large. Look at the number of holdings, and then in factor I've kind of said, well, what's the driver around the outperformance? I think a lot of them are based around quality. Things like Lion Trust Sustainable Futures, Baillie, Gifford Global Stewardship are based more around environment, social governance, and then Baillie Gifford Long Term Global Growth and Gamstar Disruptive are more tech funds. So got this initial data, then I've pulled the top countries that each fund is in, and I can just compare at a glance. So I can see that Gamstar is very heavy on US. Lidsall Train has probably too much, well, UK and Japan for my liking. So that's one that I'd start to screen out. Top 10 companies, you've got to be careful if they invest in a company that you don't particularly like. Don't throw out the rest of the fund just because it's got 2% of Ryanair and you think EasyJet is a much better company. But I just like to see maybe which ones are loss-making or which ones are a little bit overhyped. I mean, we've got the good old Tesla here in Baillie Gifford, and Lidsall Train, very concentrated, probably a bit too concentrated for my liking. And then Gamstar Disruptive, mainly a tech fund, but then it's got Walt Disney thrown in. Top sectors, this can be a bit misleading because some funds are heavily involved in technology and influenced in technology, but they're not actually sitting in either technology hardware or in software either. So yeah, it's just important just to be aware of that one. And we can see actually, yeah, Blue Whale, very heavily involved in software. It likes the recurring revenues that things like Microsoft get from Excel, where it's software as a service and people subscribe every month. So then for each individual fund, I'm just pulling bits of data and then just using import HTML commands to get the data in, and then just numbers correspond to different tables in that website. So to bring it all back together, let's have a look. So for Lidsall Train, I'm saying it's too concentrated, and then it had quite a lot of Japan in it. For Baillie Gifford Long Term Global Growth, that was the only one that had China in it. So I'd be a little bit wary on that because I'd probably have a separate emerging markets fund, and I'd be careful, be a bit wary of some overlap there. Generally, the fund size is okay. The T. Rowe Price, this one is offered all around the world, so the UK component is quite small, but actually the overall fund is large. Number of holdings, yeah, I mean, generally pretty good, pretty concentrated there. The fees, Gamstar is quite expensive really for what it is, and then the Rathbone Global Opportunity is pretty good value, as is the Baillie Gifford fund, I would argue. In terms of performance, some of these haven't been around for 5 years, Some you can get the data, you're just going to have to delve a bit more deeply to get it. So there's a few that haven't done so well in recent months because of the decline in tech valuations, and that's impacted them. But then conversely, they've done quite well over a year. So yeah, Lidsell Train, not such a great performer. So then when I'm looking to choose, I'm a little bit wary of tech going forwards and whether it's kind of had a lot of its growth and there's not so much growth in front of it. Well, I do note that some of the best returns are with BG long-term global growth there. I do like Lion Trust's Sustainable Futures. I think that's a well-respected, well-managed fund. And then this dividend yield is quite interesting compared to Baillie Gifford because it's saying there's probably more profitable cash-generative companies in there, and hence there is a yield. I mean, not a great one, but there is a yield there. So unfortunately, all of this is really an art rather than a science, and you can maybe try and give it a star rating, some sort of scores on the doors, but it's pretty difficult to really do that. So you've got to then start to read more about the fund, how it makes its decisions, what it's bought recently, what it's sold recently, and why. But be careful when you're reading about a fund, because a lot of the fund literature is just propaganda, and it's written in a way that you think, oh yeah, this is great, when actually it's masking the story. So for example, in Fundsmith, they recently sold Sage, when a few months ago they're saying, oh, we're going to hang on to it, and although it's been slow at adopting cloud technology, we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt. So that's an example of someone 1 minute spinning a story around, well, here's why we should keep it because it's got some growth ahead of it, and then a few months later it's out the door. So yes, have a read around it and just find something that seems to really resonate with you. I think apart from Lidsell Train, I think all of these will do quite well going forwards, and then it's just a question of using your own judgment to find the right one for you. So please leave any comments that you have at the bottom of this video. Like it, I hope you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel.